Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new episode of Growth Spotlight. I am Eren, founder of Next Big Thing. Today, we have got a very, very valuable guest, one of our growth navigators, mentors, dear Mr. Ken Valledy is with us. Ken, I don't want to try to explain your amazing career. That's why I want to give the floor to you that you can give a brief intro about yourself. Then I've got very interesting questions waiting for you today.
Brilliant. Well, first of all, Aaron, thank you for having me on. It's been great thinking about this. I really look forward to this session. My name's Ken Valledy, for people who don't know me. 12 years ago, I was in the corporate world. I was a marketeer. I used to work in brand marketing for Anheuser-Busch, the big global brewer. I left there to start my own business, initially on my own. I was a connector. I used to connect large companies with startups, and I spent 2 or 3 years doing that on my own. I then co-formed a small agency, and our briefs got bigger, clients got bigger, and we worked for people like Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, Mercedes would come to us and say, can you find some startups to help us? And that was great. We did that. And then we were lucky enough to be acquired in 2023 by a large consultancy called Navigators. They acquired us. That my earn-out there finished last year. And now I run a program called The Great Escape, which helps people who were like me, maybe in the past, in good corporate jobs, but always had this yearning and this kernel of an idea to be their own boss. And I help people make that step from 0 to 1. But to summarize the last 12 years, I've worked with startups. I still mentor a lot of startups. I sit on a lot of panels. I've written a book called the Startup Lexicon, which looks into the language of startups. So really, in many different ways, everything I've done since leaving the corporate world has been and still is involved with startups.
I really like that because if connecting the dots was something I think I see in your career, Ken, because when we met with you, you were working with, as you said, with the corporates, you were getting the brief from them, then you were looking for the startups. At the same time, in accelerators, we met with you, maybe, I don't know if you recall, we met with you in one of the startup bootcamp.
Yeah, we did.
Accelerators. Yeah, we were a peer mentor. Then when we started our own accelerator, you were one of the first ones we invited, and thanks your acceptance. And then you started to provide your support to our accelerator program startups. Then I saw you on the field how you give these insights to the startups about in the topic of how they can work with corporates. Then now with the Great Escape, now you are around the startup world, but now looking to another target audience, the audience who are working in the corporate but would like to break into the startup. I'm sure that with the Great Escape, you have been helping with lots of people who would like to enter the startup world. My agenda for today is talk about the working with corporates topic first, because this is one of the challenges you and I chat several times. Then I would like to go into networking, because this is one of the areas also I find your insights highly valuable. And last but not the least, we can talk about how people can break into the corporates. How does it sound? Sound okay?
Great. Yep. Far away.
Okay, let's go. Let's start with the working with corporates. Okay, let's start with the elephant in the room. Do really corporates are working with startups, or is it just they are faking that they are working with startups? Did you see real cases, and can you give us a little bit more information about how the corporates thought they need to work with a startup and how this procurement process happens?
Yeah, well, I can vouch for 100 plus corporate briefs that I've worked on from when I started on my own. And I think what drives it, and to a certain extent, what drives it is curiosity. And so a lot of corporates will get to a point where, I would argue, especially in the brand world, where they get so far and they want to know what else is out there. They may have a problem. They may need a new way to get to their audience, to sell more of their product, to drive awareness of their offering, whatever it may be. And the startup world gives that opportunity, that futuristic opportunity that they can grab hold of and engage with and leverage for their own benefit. That's the corporate. So what I did was I helped introduce these large clients to the mass of different corporates out there that can help them. Where I helped was, in fairness to the corporates, they were going down a very untrodden path. So I was there to help them negotiate, navigate what's out there, between us work out what could be right for them. That involved hundreds of pitches, and to help the corporate then choose 1 or 2 partners to pilot with. So I was their kind of navigator, whatever you want to call it, to help them go from here's my brief to, wow, I'm actually working with the startups. To answer your question, yes, absolutely. I've worked with I say 100 plus briefs. I've sat through hundreds of presentations where a startup is presenting to a corporate around a brief. And so it's real. It doesn't mean that all corporates are, and it doesn't mean that all corporates are doing it in the best way. But the ones that I've worked with and been fortunate enough to work with in the past have all been, had a lot of integrity. I've not ever come across anything where a corporate has tried to steal the IP of a startup, which is kind of quite a common thing going around now. I've never had that. I don't know
Interestingly,
why. Maybe
yeah.
I've seen it. I get red flags. I've never really had the red flags. I do think that corporates could do more, but I do also think that when they're in there and they cross that line, they really want to get the benefit of working with a startup. And in most cases, I work with a corporate, it's around partnerships and pilots. And in that way, a corporate needs that startup to be able to work with them, and also needs to be able to work with that startup. So as a kind of I'm a bit like not a dating agency, but I kind of join the two together and make sure they both get on. They both got different ways of working. They've both got different expectations. I'm there to make sure both sides get and got what they wanted or ideally wanted from that partnership. But absolutely, I think if corporates didn't want to work with startups, the business I started back in 2014 would have failed after a few months. But, we sold it back in 2023. And we were still connecting then when we were working with Thesis. Corporates still coming in, wanting to know what's happened. So there is a definite flow and curiosity and enthusiasm, I feel, from the corporate world to engage with startups. I think where the gaps still are is I still think large companies need to get out there more and meet startups. There shouldn't really have to be a facilitator involved. They should be going out there and knowing what's happening. And I still gut feel that a lot of corporates, large companies, large brands don't really appreciate what is out there. They're comfortable knowing what they know without being controversial. They believe that what they're told by their agencies is all that's out there. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity out there they're not aware of. And there's a lot of corporates that are still yet to step up and cross that line.
It is a concrete confirmation that comes from you, because you are talking about 100 plus briefs. Yeah. Maybe you can give some tips to founders about something to do or something not to do when they are trying to close a corporate brief.
Yeah. So the process we went through was, it starts with a corporate saying to us, here is a problem I've got. And that could be a marketing problem, a logistics problem. It doesn't matter what the problem is. They would fill out a template that we had, a brief that says what their problem is, what the context is, any kind of constraints, any scope. We would align with the corporate that we understand what they want, because sometimes we need to understand it and sometimes they need to understand it as well. Even though they've written it, when they talk to someone, it might prize out some more information or scope it down a bit, whatever it may be. So we align on that brief. I then used to go out to the network of startups I had globally, and that involved knowing lots of people globally who had accelerators, black books of companies. And I would say to them, a client of mine, I never named the client, because some corporates don't want people to know they're looking. So I'd say a client of mine in automotive is looking for a startup in this area. And I would send to them, my network, a paragraph or two from the brief. And from that, the network or the owners of the networks would say, I know 2 startups I can introduce you to. And they would make introductions. So I'd get the brief. I'd go out there to startups that I know already and say, well, you could be relevant. I contacted them and said, are you interested? But I also sent that brief to my wider network to get more opportunities. And then I would go through one-to-one conversations with most of them. And these conversations, when I first did it, took hours. But as you do it again and again, they can take 15 minutes. You kind of generally know if a founder is right for that brief. I never asked about investment. I don't know why, but at the time I never did. It was more about, in that short time we had, the 2 things I looked out for is, can I understand their technology? And if they explain it to me, in some cases, it's an area I'm not close to. If it was marketing, I get it. But if it was something to do with logistics or supply chain or HR, whatever, I may not be so close to it. So if I can understand what their tech is about, that's a big green flag. That's great. And I also try and gauge what they are like as well. If they're very, very, very confident and they can do anything, and it's like the world's their oyster and everything's amazing, that's a little bit of a red flag, because entrepreneurs generally are very positive, and that's a fantastic strength, but can be a red flag. I want someone who's realistic, who says, this is what the tech does. And someone, if I ask them questions, they give me honest answers. Because if they can't give me an honest answer and they exaggerate or they say they can do anything, I don't want them going forward, presenting to my client and then telling my client an answer that's untrue. And then it all blows up further down the line. and then it comes back to me. So my reputation is at stake all the way through this. It's bizarre looking back, 15-minute conversations and my reputation's at stake on each one, but I didn't think that at the time. So generally, can I understand their tech? Are they the kind of person I can see presenting and working with my client? And then the third one's just a gut feel. It's a gut feel on, is this right? Could I see them presenting? Could they be the person who wins it? And would it work if they work with a corporate? And that's just based on the way my brain works. It's a kind of a gut feel. There's no science behind it. So I would chat to, let's say, 40 companies, 30 companies, and I would go back to the client and say, right, here's 10 that I think you should narrow down to 5, and we have a pitch day around those 5. And I then have to regurgitate back to the client what each piece of tech does. And that takes a lot of effort because I've got to remember each bit of tech, all the things that I've been told, and I've got to sell each piece of tech to the client, which in itself, looking back now, was quite a skill in itself. But I did that. And then I helped the client choose what 4 or 5 startups they'd want to meet. And then we go to what we call as a pitch session, where each of those 5 startups is invited along and they have roughly a 30-minute slot with the face-to-face with the client, which is usually 2 or 3 of the corporate team, brand team, supply team, procurement team, whatever. And that's how it worked. The startup wouldn't know who the client is until they're invited to the pitch. What I didn't want to do is, and the client was okay with that, because it's unfair for a startup to come and pitch to a corporate and they don't know who it is. If they want to prep and they want to feel comfortable, which is really important for everyone, it was only right we say, right, the client is Mercedes, it's Procter & Gamble, it's whatever. But that was only for the ones who got through. So we did reports around it all as well and everything. But the nuts and bolts were we ended up with this pitch this day. And that was where everything relied on that for everyone. Everyone wanted it to go well. The tips I would give, so first of all, tips to a founder. If anyone asks what you do, so if someone like me gives you a call or is introduced to you and I may have a brief, you've got to be very clear what your product is. Just explain what it is and let that other person work out in their own way whether you're right and wrong, and be completely honest. Don't see it as I'm going to really oversell now because I need this, because it will bite you. Now, when it comes to the pitch, there are 4 things I kind of say to startups. The first thing is don't get overwhelmed by the brand. So some startups who are early stage will think that this is it. This is the one. I'm presenting to Procter & Gamble. They're huge. If this comes off, don't get overwhelmed, because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with individuals. So you might be presenting, you and your team might be 1 or 2 of you, presenting to 4 people from Procter & Gamble. They are most likely similar age to you. If not a similar age, not too much different. They're not that different. And they're individuals who've got their own pressures, their own challenges, and their own daily concerns. So you've got to get on with individuals, not the huge mothership of a brand that they represent. So some startups will get very phased thinking this is my moment of glory, and that puts too much pressure on them. So definitely just try and get on with the people in the room, and try and, if you can, forget their titles. Just think, if I get on with these people, I've got a really good chance of getting this brief. The second thing is, and Erin, you know me on this one, just be on time. You know, one thing I always moaned about is a lot of startups missed opportunities because they were either late or they overpitched. So if you had half an hour to 30 minutes to present and 15 minutes, so it's 15 minutes pitch, 15 minutes Q&A, a lot of startups would pitch for 25 minutes, leave 5 minutes for questions, by which time, being very British, most corporates say, we ask a couple of questions, that's it, thank you very much, your tech's great. But really, when the startup's gone and I go back, the corporate says, well, we won't have them. If they can't keep to time now, what are they going to be like if we ever work with them ongoing? So just keep to time. The third one is be very, very conscious that this one pitch is not going to give you the answer that day. So it isn't about winning that pitch that day. It's about giving a good impression that when you follow up or they come back to you, they're going to say, let's have another chat and go into the detail. It's very unlikely in these pitch sessions where someone will say, you've got it. They will wait, and then they might have another meeting with you. So this pitch, the idea of this pitch really is you want to win it, but the main measure of success is if you get another meeting after it, where people go into more detail, they may get more people involved. Dare I say procurement. So the pitch isn't everything. So when you come to that day, do a good pitch, get your product across. That's all you can do. And make sure they understand what you're doing. Keep to time, be very pleasant, and answer the questions the best you can. And then you hope they invite you back for another chat, Zoom call, whatever. And then the final one, which depends on the brief, is depending on the brief. But if you've got a clear pricing policy, get it out at the pitch. Because sometimes people will present, and let's say the client says, how much is it? And the startup will say, oh, it depends what you want. And the say, well, we want this and that. And the startup will say, it depends if you want this. And then you're almost going backwards and forwards. This could lend to, this could go to emails being exchanged, and eventually it dies off. Now, I'm there to make sure it doesn't die. If it's one of my things, I make sure that it doesn't die and the corporate makes a decision. But if you know your pricing and you're close to your pricing, even if you have to change it later down the line, it looks very good if you say, well, I haven't got all the facts, but it's £2,000 for that. And roughly we go on, I don't know, £2,000 a month plus this if you do a 3-month trial. Just show you know your numbers, because believe it or not, the corporate just wants to know how much it may cost them. Yes, they may negotiate afterwards, but they want a ballpark figure. I've seen so many pitches go wrong because it's like, well, it depends what you want. And if you let us know, and I don't quite know, it really depends. And all that is just saying to the corporate that you're early stage, you don't really know what your product's worth. You're not really solid enough yet to risk some corporate person's career on, and you generally don't get the gig. So just know your numbers, know your pricing. You don't have to stand by it and say, this is drop dead. You can say that there's caveats here. It depends what you want, but have some numbers in your head. And it feels scary, but you'll be amazed how 9 out of 10 times a corporate's okay with your costs, and they're pleased you've got some costs, and they can go away and think, God, that was really good. And it's costing that. I think we should give it a go, because a little bit expensive, but they were really good. And they can make a decision based on that info. If they've got only that's a nice person, but they're a bit waffly about the costs, it's quite easy to say, forget them, we go with another one. So to summarize, you're only talking to individuals, forget the big company behind them, get your timings on board, make sure you're not late in terms of being late, over presenting, make sure you answer honestly. And where you can, just get your message across succinctly. And if you can, show that you know your pricing. There's quite a lot there, but if you do that, you've got the best opportunity ever to get that gig. You can't do any more. It's then open lap of the gods, and it's like, how do they feel? And you can't control that.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you because it is a master class. Last 3-5 minutes. Anyone who is gonna try to sell to big corporates, I think should listen to that, because it is, some of them can seem so obvious, but this is the case. Because when you were talking about these 4 big rules, let's say, I was laughing because I can say that 90% of the founders are doing just the opposite. Being late can be the case, but most of the time I'm sure that over pitching is the case, because if they've got 30 minutes, unfortunately they want to pitch 30 minutes because they think that the more they pitch, the more details they give.
And it's the more, it's their safety zone as well. And I see it
exactly.
So they get comfortable. They think, I'm enjoying this now. People are smiling back at me. I'm going to talk about this, what we're doing, and I'm going to throw this in as well. And then I won't name the person, but I was at one of these once where there were 5 pitches and one pitch was the clear leader. That technology should have won the gig, and that could have gone on to 6-figure revenue for that startup, because it was perfect for that product. And if they had worked in the trial, they'd have put it to other countries. It was just a plug and play. It would have worked. And the founder came in, and I said to the founder before you start, please keep to 15 minutes, and you've got it. Don't say stupid, keep to 15 minutes, let them ask questions. I reckon you're miles ahead. The founder got very confident and presented for like 25 minutes. The client had one question. They wanted to ask 4 or 5. At the end, the client goes, thank you very much, great bit of tech. I went to the lift with the founder, and the founder goes, I think that went really well. And I said, I've got a funny feeling you didn't leave enough time for questions. Oh no, I've got a gut feel it's going to go well, said the founder. This was underground, these pitches. It was like 2 floors. It was like in a basement co-working space. I reckon by the time that founder got up in the lift to the reception, gave his card back in and went out into the high street to go home or to his office, I'd gotten back to the room where the clients were in, and they said, nice guy, overpitched, talks too much, next one. That founder would have left that room thinking that went really well. I've got it. This could go massive. And before he even gets to the first shop, whatever you want to call it, or bus stop, he's not even considered. But we're very polite.
Here you go.
And it, because he overpitched. If he'd have kept it, less is more. If he'd have kept it 15 minutes and answered like he can the questions, I put my house on it even now, he would have got that brief. And it's not any big. It's just simple, keeping to timings. And it's so sad that gets in the way, but but you're right. Founders get overconfident and they get comfortable, and they think the more they can throw at a corporate, the better it is. But that corporate, in my case, has 4 other startups to hear, and they don't want that person hogging everything.
I can totally relate. Getting excited with the big brands, the big names. Also, the third one, it's a funny one, that if corporate asks you something, If you cannot do that, just tell the truth.
It's a great trait. And to be, you know yourself, to run your own business, you've got to be positive. And if a client, a corporate says, can you do that? And you think you can, but you've not done it yet, the best answer is, we don't cover that at the moment. We can look into it for you. It's definitely on our roadmap. But at the moment, we don't do it, but I can look into it for you and you can have a think. What you don't want to say is, yeah, we can do that, because you don't really know what they're asking for. You don't really know the detail. You don't know the timelines. You don't know what their expectations are. And you've committed to something you've not done yet. And I've seen it with founders and I think, oh my God, if they now give you that brief, somehow you and I have got to work out a story where we kind of explain why it won't happen just yet. And I've been there a couple of times and it's not good. I don't try and get in the way of the pitches, but I've seen pitches go to corporate, to startups who have said, I don't know if we can do that, or unfortunately we can't do that. And the feedback from the corporate is, I really like them. They're honest. I want to help them. I want to help them build a product. I think we could work with them. And it all comes down to the people then, as much as the tech or the offering. So be honest, and people respect that, because in a funny way, corporates expect the founders to be, yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. And the more a founder says, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. The more the corporate's thinking, I bet you can't. I bet you can't. So it kind of goes on and on. So be honest. And I think you'll stand out. Obviously be optimistic. You can phrase things in different ways to be optimistic, but be honest.
And for the pricing as well, the last point, it is very important that I can also understand the founder doesn't want to disclose any pricing because maybe afraid of being too cheap or too expensive. But
you can, absolutely. And you can cover yourself by giving a range. You don't have to say this will cost £4,125.16. You can say it depends on what you want, but what you're looking for, I think, would cost anything between £2,000 to £5,000 or £5,000 to £10,000. As long as you give a range, I think that's better than, I don't know, I need some more information. Because then there's a gap of knowledge. I mean, sometimes they don't want to know pricing at the pitch. They just want to know what you're doing and everything. But usually they do. Just give a range, and at least they got something to consider afterwards. Because when they sit down afterwards and there's 5 companies to decide from, if 4 companies are giving their pricing and 4 of them can do something okay, and the 5th one is really good, but they haven't given their pricing, yes, the corporate may still ask for it, but there's a chance they say, you know what, that's really good, but these are quite good. We could move faster with these ones, and this one's a good price. We go with that. So you might just miss an opportunity if you don't give some idea in numbers of what the pricing is, but you don't have to be exact. Just give a range. And to your point, the corporate can then work out whether that's very good or too high, what have you. But I think you've got to give a range. And it's very scary to give a price. It's one of those scary moments, and it's going to cost, and you wait. But it's much better doing that than having that conversation again on email where it gets not ignored or people don't understand it or they read between the lines. It's much easier to kind of sell a price in person and what it involves than it is trying to do an email.
All right. Yes. Great stuff. I want to jump to our next topic, which is networking. And for the founders, one of the options that they can meet with people like Ken or people who are working in the corporates or any relevant stakeholder in their growth journey is networking. And when it comes to UK is a very closed ecosystem. That's what I feel in my own experiences. You can go to networking, you can find some networking events, but at the end of the day, there are some tiers. Like the tier 1 is you meet with people who are trying to sell you something most of the time. You can easily reach that tier. I feel like there's another tier, let's say tier 2, where you start to meet with relevant people. And then if you go deeper, the tier 3 is more closed events, like the private dinners that only specific people are being invited. That's why there are like different tiers. This is my tiering mechanism, by the way. I'm just thinking out loud. But my question will be, Ken, for a founder, especially an international founder who would like to break into the UK market, we always say that utilize networking, but where to start and how to approach this networking thing for a startup founder?
Yeah, good question. I think first of all, people put too much pressure on themselves when it comes to networking. The expectations are far too high. So what I would say is, if you're a founder coming to the UK for the first time, or if you're in the UK anyway, try and be very focused on the kind of people you want to meet. So let's say, for example, now you are selling career coaching, or you want to do coaching for someone, fitness coaching, say. Try and avoid the big, I mean, nothing against UK Tech Week or things like that. They're great. But when you go to the big conferences, yes, there may be someone there that you want to talk to, but they're very big. There's loads of people. There's not a lot of room. It's very loud. And it's quite tiring standing on your feet all day, walking around chatting to people, and you come away with lots of paper and bits that usually don't survive the day, and you don't really get anywhere and you feel quite disheartened. So what I would say is try and go to smaller events. So if you're a fitness coach or whatever it may be you do, try and see if there's any in London or any city, any events or panels that focus on your area generally, and go to those. So for example, in what I do now, helping people jump from the corporate train to start their own business, I will try and go to events where it's to do with midlife, or it's to do with careers in your midlife, or it's to do with starting your own business from scratch. And there's people there talking about the problems or the challenges of starting a business. I go to very not closed, because it's usually free invites. You don't have to be invited. Go along and hear a panel, and there may be at the most 100 people there, at the most. And if, say, you're going there as a fitness coach and someone's talking about AI in fitness going forward, I'm making that up, go along, listen to the panel. And if you're if you're a fitness coach, you listen to the panel, you might have a question. And afterwards, when you've got your beer or your pizza or you're chatting, there's a very good chance, one, that people in that room are there for the same reason. So they've got an interest in physical fitness coaching. So straight away, it's unlikely you're going to talk to someone who runs a farm somewhere or writes books or whatever. It's about your area, because that's why they're there. So the more succinct you are on the kind of event you go to, the more chance you're going to meet people there like you or in the same area as you, which makes them more relevant. So improve your chances by going to the smaller events. I try and go to 1 or 2 events a week. I've been doing it for 12 years. Most of the events I go to are smaller events. Mm-hmm. I go to ones where there's 30 people, 50 people, maybe 100 at the most, but the topic has to be relevant. So the first thing is improve your chances of talking to the right people by going to focused events that are relevant to your market or your area. Don't just go to the big conferences and the big London tech weeks, because they're huge, but it's going to be very lucky for you to chat to someone who you may be able to help, or they may be able to help you. So improve your play in the numbers game, improve your chances. Mm-hmm. The second thing I say is when you go to a networking event, please don't go there with a selling mindset. If you go there and say, right, anyone who shows any interest in what I do, I'm going to start pitching, you're going to get a reputation very quickly, and no one's going to want to talk to you. And they think, avoid that person, because all they do is pitch. My networking approach, if I go to these events, is I just generally ask what people do first. So find out what they do, and then ask questions. And my brain's thinking, first of all, how can I help them? So if someone's there in a certain area, I'm intrigued by what they do, I ask lots of questions. I generally can think of one person I can introduce them to, or an event they should go to, or a book they should read, or a podcast they should listen to. The more you go to, the more you can join the dots. So once you've gone through that, there's a very good chance that person's going to say, oh, and what do you do, Ken? Now, it doesn't mean they're going to help me, but they're going to listen to what I said, hopefully, because I put some time out for them. And then I go through what I do. But the thing there is, I don't over pitch what I do. I just say, I deal with this thing called the Great Escape. And I leave it at that. And they go, oh, well, what does that involve? And they're intrigued. And then I just say, I help people stuck on the corporate train become their own boss. And I leave it in the air, and I can tell from how they react whether that's relevant to them or not. I don't go through a spiel. This is what I do. Here's the 10 steps. Here's what I've done. This is how great I am. I just throw a couple of lines out there so they get an idea of what I do. And you can tell quite quickly whether they say, oh, that's interesting. I know someone I can help that can help you. Or, oh, that's really interesting. And then you know that with all due respect to that person, they can't really help. And then just move on and talk to other people. But I don't go one, go to small events. 2, ask someone what they do first. I always do that. 3, don't give too much away about yourself, because that person may not be relevant and you're wasting time and energy and everything. And you're most likely boring them as well, boring them silly. The third thing is just see the networking as something that is great to do when you run your own business. You can go somewhere, they're usually free, you meet interesting people in an area that you're interested in, and you can just chat to people about what you're doing. I never go to any event hoping to get new business, hoping to get new leads. I just go there and chat to people. I generally come away with introductions, opportunities to meet these people afterwards, but I don't go there with any targets. I don't put any pressure on myself. And yes, some aren't very good. You go there and you come away after an hour thinking, well, it wasn't worth it. But you had to go. The less pressure you put on yourself, the less you sell, ironically, the more chance you will get something from meeting someone there. And the final bit is it's unlikely the person you meet will be the person that you may be working with in the future. So people expect to go to a networking event and bump into a customer. Now, it can happen. It happened the other day with me. I bumped into a guy, we were talking about something, and he ended up being a client, literally 3 weeks ago. That's never happened before. Normally, someone will say, oh, that's interesting what you do. I know someone you should talk to. And that introduction could then lead to the customer, or dare I say, that person you meet might know someone else who is your customer. You might have to go around 2 or 3 conversations to get in front of the right person. It's very unlikely that first person you meet will be a customer ready to pay, ready to do business. I've never had it, but people still come away saying, I didn't meet any customers. And I think, but you're not really going to meet customers. And even if someone comes across as a customer, let them tell you that they're interested. Don't say, you're perfect for me. Hold back. Less is more. Take pressure off yourself and enjoy it, and things will happen. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you are and the more you enjoy it. I mean, I actually enjoy going to networking events. I don't keep a spreadsheet or who I've met. I generally will introduce people to people, and you might get something back. You don't have to, but I see it as a very informal gathering. And if you're all there under the same umbrella, the same subject, there is a very good chance that you can help someone and they may be able to help you. And that's it. That's all you can hope for. One little tip I'd give people is the worst thing about a networking event is going there and you've got to start talking to someone. So if you go there on your own, you'll always see someone standing there on a phone in the corner and they're not talking to anyone. And I've been there. I still sometimes go to events and I've got to get the energy together to go and talk to someone. And you can only look at your phone for so long before you feel a bit awkward, but there's always people there on their own. So what I generally do is if I'm at an event and there's someone on their own, I go and say hello to them, shake their hand, have a chat. And all they need is someone to talk to. You don't have to stay there forever with them, but just to get them into to talking. The other tip that I've always done is if you are somewhere and you're struggling for whatever reason to make a connection, it's always best to go and stand near where the food or the drink is. So if you stand near where the food or drink is, or you're queuing for a drink or a piece of food, it's quite easy to get a conversation going saying, oh, I could do with one of these. I've had a long day today. Or I wonder what God, there's loads of pizza. I've never seen this chit chat. That chit chat can easily lead to, so what are you doing here? And most of the time they're grateful you're talking to them, but you can start the conversation around your surroundings, which could be food, drink, or whatever it may be. So I always go near where the food and drink are. And that's where you can start informal conversations, which then get to a more networky kind of conversation starting. If you just stand by in the middle of the room or you stand in the corner, it's very unlikely, unless I'm there sometimes, anyone's going to come up to you and say hello. And the final thing is, I've done it so many times. It's not unusual at a networking event for someone to come up to you and say, hi, in my case, hi, I'm Ken. And you shake hands, they say your name and you start talking. It feels really awkward at the start. It feels a bit false. It feels a bit, oh, hi, I do it now without thinking about it. And a lot of people do it and you don't even notice it. But if you think too much about it, it feels awkward. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Please talk to me. It doesn't come hi, I'm so-and-so. And people think, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. They're used to it. If people go to networking events, they're used to people coming up to them cold and talking. So don't feel awkward by saying, hi, I'm Ken. And to make it easier, have something to talk about. If you want to have a more informal start, stand near the drinks and the food. It sounds a bit naff really, but it works. So once you get talking, you'll find that other people will come over and then you're talking and there's someone else, you talk to them and then you're off. But it's that initial connection that you need. And I don't mind going up to someone saying, hi, I'm Ken, or sorry to interrupt your conversation, but I just thought I'd say hello. And people will accept you in and they say, fine. They don't have to get you talking straight away, but you're in that little circle when they talk. People, I'm used to it. I'm used to it all the time. It's a networking event. People are going to come up and say hello. That's why it's a networking event. So don't put pressure on yourself to like, no one's talking to me. I'm on my own. This feels really awkward. I can't keep looking at my phone. I'm going to go home. Just go up to someone and say, hi, I'm this, or go near the food or the drink and say, God, this pizza looks good or whatever, and just get a conversation going. And I would guarantee 9 out of 10 times the other person is thinking, wow, thank God someone's talking because this pizza's fine, but I want to talk to someone. So the elephant in the room is most people want to talk to someone and they want someone to come and break the ice and say hello to them. But it feels awkward to go up to someone and say hello, but half the time they're pleased when you do.
All great stuff. My last question will be for the ones who stuck in corporates. That's what I did in the beginning of my career. I spent 6 years of my time in one of the leading banks, and I always wanted to break into the startup world. That's why in the last 2-3 years, I was trying to find my way. That's why I've been there. I experienced that. That is a challenging area. That's why it's a big topic. We can have another episode for it. But as the last part of this episode, can you give us some concrete tips about where to start, maybe? Then we can continue in the following episode with the more details.
So with The Great Escape, I deal with helping generally midlife corporate successful leaders who are in a funny situation where they've got everything they've always wanted: good job, good title, good package, maybe a big car, nice holidays. They've got everything they want, but their job doesn't fulfill them anymore. And they think, is this it? They could be 35, 40, 45. They've got to the level they want to get to, and they still think, I'm not happy. And it's usually because they're overworked, overstressed, and they think, well, I'm too old to change. I've always wanted to be my own boss, but where do I start? So I'm going to sit here, avoid getting made redundant. I'm going to sit here till I retire, which could be 10 years of doing a job you don't like. And the other thing is, a lot of them, because they're getting paid good money, think, well, that's what I get paid good money for, to be stressed, which I don't understand. So people are stuck. On paper, they should be happy, but they're not. And they dread work every Sunday, all this kind of stuff. So what I do is I do one-on-one coaching with senior leaders. So I'm talking directors, C-suite of large companies. And on a one-on-one basis, I work through with them what ideas they've got to start their own business. Some want to go into consultancy, some want to do their own bakery. It could be anything. And we start working out how they could shape that, how they could get their proposition right, how they could get their niche right, what their pricing could be, how they can register a company, all these things. Now, I don't do it for them, but over a 2-hour workshop, which is my first product offering, I give them the clarity that is, if you're going to do this, this is how your idea could look. This is what you got to do. And if you want to start now, you've got to start pulling these levers in this order. So at the end of it, they think, right, if I'm going to make this happen, be it 1 hour a week, 1 day a week, maybe at weekends, I've got a list of things I've got to do in this order. That's literally all I do. I give them that clarity and that path to go from 0 to 1. I also offer clients 12-week support programs where I go further with them and I help them build their awareness, go to events, networking, get some clients and get their business rolling. But that's more of a 12-week support. But the tips I would give anyone out there who is stuck is, if you've got an idea of a startup, just get in touch. Your idea most likely is a really good one, but because you've never told anyone and you've kept it up here, you've most likely convinced yourself it isn't. So I've had some really wacky ideas from clients and a lot of them have been really, really good. And I might be the first person they tell, but just get it out there, get talking about it. If you want, have a chat with me, but if not, talk to your friends about it, work out what your market is, work out what makes you different, and just register a company and start trading. I mean, it sounds simple, but it isn't that difficult. But if you don't make that first step, you're going to be like I was 10, 12, 13 years ago, where at the end of every year, at New Year's Eve, I would say, I need a new job. I need to do that. And it never happened. And as you get older, there's less chance you're going to do it. And so I say to clients, if you want to make that first step and you've got an idea, let's work together and make it more concrete and let's work out a path for you towards launching your own business, be it as a side hustle or whatever. But there's no such thing as a bad idea. I think everyone can fit a side hustle in somewhere if they want to. And all I would say is, once you do a side hustle, you'll be glad you've done it. And if it builds to something else, and like we have, that's your living now, you leave the corporate world and do it yourself. You don't generally look back. The fact I'd leave you with is, I've worked with quite a few clients with what I do now, but I know over the years, a lot of people who've left the corporate world to start their own business. I only know 2 that have gone back. So I would say that's 1%, at even less than 1% of all the people I know that at some point left the corporate world completely to start their own thing. They may have done a side hustle at the start, but all the ones that eventually left, only 2 have gone back. One went back because of bigger issues and things were happening. They had to go back and get a regular wage, and that's fully understandable. The other one went back very quickly, and you could almost tell straight away that they should never really have left, to be honest. But everyone else made a go of it. They got the bug. They got really into it. They loved the freedom. Yes, it's stressful sometimes, but they like the autonomy. And once you get a taste of that, it's quite tough to go back. So I'm not saying everyone should leave the corporate world. It's a great place if you're happy, but if you're not happy, why sit out in a job that is unfulfilling for forever and a day until you get made redundant or you retire? It's a waste of time. Yeah. So there's a kind of basic tips, be bold and start to make that move towards the exit door and try and get off that corporate train eventually.
Ken, I wish we have more time, but I need to cut at some point. Thanks so much. Before we close, do you have any closing remarks?
No, all I say is thank you very much. It's always great to, talk to other people and to hopefully give some insight. Hopefully what everyone gets from it is there's no kind of secret sauce here. A lot of the tips that I give, or a lot of the insights I see and have learned, are very simple. There's nothing, I know a lot of times people might be hearing this thinking, well, that's quite straightforward. That's quite straightforward. It is quite straightforward. I think sometimes people expect a magical answer that they've never heard before. I don't think that exists. I think if you just keep it simple and do, control what you can control and just be a bit brave and step forward. I think you can achieve a lot. But a lot of the secret is just keep things simple, and less is definitely more. If I leave you with anything, less is more.
Less is more is definitely, I can echo that. If you watch until here, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can share it with a relevant person, a founder, someone working in the corporate who would like to break into a startup world. And thanks so much for watching until now. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.